If I'm honest with you, a lot of my inspiration when I'm working with clients comes in the moment. I read a lot, I study a lot, I develop skills and have my master's and all that. But a lot of it comes very intuitively, instinctually. And many times I'll have realizations that'll even like catch me off guard, where I'll be putting things together in real time, like, oh, damn, that's pretty deep. I'm probably gonna have to journal about that later. One of the things that came up today, working with this organization that's in some transitions, was the need to cultivate relationships. And not just cultivate relationships in terms of like team building and things of that nature, but more so along the lines of how do we normalize everyday communicative relational dynamics while understanding the benefits to an organization. To simplify it, how do you have fun with people? How do you spend quality time with them that allows you to develop relationships so that work feels less like a task and a draw or a pull of energy and more of a reciprocal exchange of energy? How do you change engaging with those that you're trying to accomplish a task with or complete a purpose with and change that from something that drains you to something that rejuvenates you? You know, Adrienne Marie Brown has this book called Pleasure Activism. And one of the things that she posits in there is that when your work becomes a source of uh, purpose, pleasure, fulfillment, that it is a liberating act. And for many of us, our work is anything but that. But for this organization, they are an organization that's centered around community, centered around supporting others, transformation. And so there's a lot of purpose, there's a lot of drive behind it. And one of the things that we had to really evaluate was the sustainability of engaging in relationship in a way where there's energy flowing out to accomplish a task, but we're not creating the types of relationships where that energy can flow back into us so that we are able to not only continue to be restored enough to continue the work, to sustain the work over the years. They're now in year 7. Um, but in a way that allows our work to be a source of inspiration, that our relationships are actually a source of community, family, connection, um, desire to continue the work, to continue to build together, because building together becomes less about an experience of tasks and more of an opportunity to enjoy our lives. Just think about how transformational that could be. That my work, the thing that I invest most of my energy in throughout the day, is actually the space I enjoy the most. Is actually the space that excites me the most. Right? And this is a very contradictory outlook in terms of our kind of Western capitalist society where most of our labor is not around desire, but more so around must, uh, what you have to, what you are manipulated and positioned into due to the current economy, your financial needs, resources, or the ever impending experience of a lack of sustainable resources to be able to survive. And much of that has to do with how we form our communities, because especially for African Americans, Black people, we have not survived based on having an abundance of financial resources. We have thrived continuously for hundreds of years in North America, in this post colonial world, through our community. And when I say thrived, I mean we have gone on to do incredible things, inventors. We've created towns and cities. We have started industries. We have become leaders of technology and different academic spaces and growth and community and change for the better politically and grassroots. We've done so many things, but the strength has never been the dollar. That has been a byproduct of our social strength. but our foundation was always relationship. But here's the thing: for a lot of us, we have culture, we have these rituals that we've done over and over, but few of us have an understanding of why these things are important in the first place. A lot of kids, will, have a deep sigh. Ah, man, do we have to go to church again? Do we have to go to so and so's graduation? Do I have to go to this birthday party? And many times parents don't have a concrete answer as much as just a reinforcement of authority. Yes, we're going. Yes, we have to go. And for some of us, the children then swing to the other side of the pendulum and say, no, we don't have to go when they become parents. And so they don't raise their children to practice those rituals. But many times that's because the adults themselves did not have a true understanding of the value of those rituals. That actually going to those spaces was a time for us to maintain and sustain our relationships in a way that fed us energy, gave us a sense of belonging, connection, groundedness, allowed us to have an understanding of why we navigate our lives in certain ways, why we make decisions for the betterment of the whole, why we operate in terms of our decision making in a way that's conscious of how it impacts those around us and those we care about the most. It's because we showed up. It's because we engaged in relationship and did our best to make it enjoyable. It isn't just that a grandmama had that secret recipe and made that cake or made that meal that brought everybody back together and it was just a good meal. No, actually, it was the central component of maintaining a community that allowed each of the individuals to thrive because they received a life giving energy through the exchange of community, through relationship. It's interesting that a fundamental, foundational aspect of my work is connecting uh, my community and those that I work with back to an alternative way of seeing our world. And when I say alternative, it is an indigenous, African centered way of seeing ourselves in contrast to that of a Western culture that we were indoctrinated into. We did not choose to come here to live this type of way, this style of life. Um, we were imposed upon, forced into. Um, and as a result, a lot of us have picked up a lot of habits that we don't necessarily understand the ramifications of. We do many things that are divisive within our communities and relationships, but most of that derives from how we see ourselves and how we operate in our own lives. If I don't think that my work should be rewarding, if I don't think I should receive back energy from the relationships in which I spend the most amount of my time, then how does that also feed into my marriage, to my parenting? I now have normalized many times one sided relationships where I position myself many times in a hierarchical way or a way that gives me a sense of control that's one sided. And then I give out energy, but I'm not necessarily asking for it back or even expecting it to come back, let alone to come back in a deeply fulfilling and invigorating and purposeful way. One of the things that I'm really into these days is nature, agriculture, permaculture, if you're a gardener or familiar with the term. And one of the things that is happening tremendously throughout the world right now is this land transform transformative work that is taking place throughout the globe. Australia, Asia, the Middle East, throughout the continent of Africa, Europe, North America, Central America, South America, all throughout the world, because the world is reeling over the last 50 or so years. When we talk about climate change, a lot of it has been due to the colonial activities of trying to maximize profit from the land through either farming or grazing, cattle, pigs, things like that, in order to be exported and sold. And what has happened over this kind of money hungry attempt to gain as much wealth as possible over a short amount of time is that they have completely disconnected themselves from indigenous practices of sustainability. In other words, the people that they drove off the land in order to attain the land and sell it to foreigners and things of that nature, so that they can maximize profit. Those are the very people who are also in deep relationship with the land. As a result, a lot of this land has become degraded, now a term they call desertified, where the soil becomes depleted of nutrients and it no longer is sustainable for life. You no longer see the trees, let alone farms. Cattle can't graze there. And so it's completely underutilized or not utilized at all. And now, over the past 10 to 15 years, you have this massive movement of how do we restore this land, because the byproduct of that land being desertified is that now you have drought because the land doesn't absorb water, which means that the water basin where people draw water out of, the wells and the lakes and the dams and things like that, that allow for communities, cities, towns to have running water, drinkable water, they no longer have because of the composition of the soil. Now you kind of see where I'm going with this within our own lives. And I can go on and on about how that's been impacted by these same farmers or cattle ranchers who got rid of different species of animals that are all a part of this ecosystem, this biodiverse ecosystem that allows land to be sustainable, healthy, that allows humans to thrive with it. But let me skip past all that, come back to our lives. Many of us are living in ways that are unsustainable because we are giving out energy into a world for a dollar back. And I'm not going to minimize the needs that we have financially. What I am going to point out is the impact of a certain type of relationship to our work and to our lives that will create an experience that we will have to reckon with if we want to continue to have. And a part of that experience is that when we continue to give out energy that is not being reciprocated, because either we don't expect it to, so we don't shape it to do that. We don't create opportunities for it to do that. We don't cultivate the relationships. We're not intentional about spending time together, laughter, love, support, right? Giving and expecting something back in return, asking for what we need, being intentional about, am I receiving, or is there something I need to do to kind of cultivate this relationship better so that I'm able to receive from it? Because we're not doing that, we don't have a community around us, even in as much as many of us have become transplants in other places. We've left our central communities where there's family and friends, and we've left for job opportunities. We've created a normalization of isolation. And even when we find relationships, they're many times very superficial. Our friendships, our partnerships, intimate relationships, even in parenthood, we still become very isolative because we haven't learned how to cultivate those relationships or even understand the value of cultivating those relationships, of pouring into them, not in a way that's like work, right? Not in a way that feels taxing, like a drag of our energy, but in an understanding that as I cultivate the soil of my garden, I'm now able to eat from that garden, right? As I make sure that I'm putting the fertilizer and I'm tilling the weeds out of it, I'm also eating from that same relationship. I'm being energized. I'm allowed to eat well. And here's the thing, we all know organic food is, healthier, less pesticides and things of that nature. But there's something even more transformative, healthy, um, rejuvenating about the food that we grow ourselves. Many of us living in apartments. Shoot, I live in an apartment. I do have a little balcony where I have stuff out there as well. But it's to say that many of us don't necessarily have that relationship with growing our own food to recognize how much sweeter it tastes, how much crisper, how much more flavorful the food is from our own gardens that we cultivate. Many of us in our relationships, similarly, are not cultivating genuine relationships, healthy relationships where we can eat abundantly from it and it's delicious. Many of us have very superficial relationships, fast food, convenience store relationships that have very little nutrients, have a lot of toxicity. And we're experiencing that more and more in our workplace, in our families, in our homes. And so much of my work is around how do we reframe our lives to begin to see ourselves differently and the opportunities that we have to live an abundant, transformative life. as we embrace a difference of perspective. And I guess in this video, it's an opportunity to really encourage us to have more fun in our relationships. Have more fun. Fun is not a small measure, it is not inconsequential, it is not minimal. Fun within your marriage, fun within your parenting, fun within your work, fun and play and enjoyment and laughter and embrace and touch and love, all these different things are the life force that allow you to thrive, that minimize your stress, that maximize your ability to have a sense of self confidence and self worth and value, the ability to make decisions that are best suited for the whole and not just ourselves as an individual. Have fun, have fun. And now have an understanding of just how important it is. If you receive something from this video, share it with somebody. Should even hit the like button for when I post new videos. I'm gonna try to get back to it. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. My name is Ross with Bridges and Stones Family and Relationship Care. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to throw it in the comment section, and I'll definitely do my best to get back to you there. Or you can reach me at my website. It'll be posted in the description box. I hope to talk to you soon, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.